Your soulmate had a private conversation with someone very close to you last night, and your name came up before either of them had even finished their coffee. It happened at 9:14 p.m. inside the back room of a small cafe called Alder and Pine. The front doors had already been locked. Only one lamp was on. Rain was tapping against the windows, and your soulmate was sitting across from Jordan, the person who has known you longer than almost anyone else in your life. Jordan had asked for the meeting. Not your soulmate. That detail matters. Because for almost 8 months, Jordan had refused to discuss you with them. Every time your soulmate asked whether you were okay, Jordan gave the same answer: if they want you to know something, they'll tell you. Last night was different. Jordan placed a worn brown folder on the table. Your soulmate immediately recognized your handwriting across the front. Their expression changed. "Where did you get that?" Jordan answered, "They gave it to me." "When?" 8 months ago. Your soulmate looked at the folder again. Then at Jordan. "Why are you giving it to me now?" Jordan leaned back. "Because the investigation is over." Your soulmate stopped moving. Then Jordan said your name. Not casually. Not as part of some old memory. Jordan said, "Before you decide what you think they did to you, there are some things about them you were never told." Your soulmate's hands tightened around the coffee cup. They asked, "What things?" Jordan opened the folder. The first document was a transfer receipt. The second was a legal statement. The third was a list containing 17 names. Your soulmate recognized every one. They were students. Young people whose scholarships had almost disappeared during the scandal that destroyed your relationship. Your soulmate looked at Jordan. "What does this have to do with them?" Jordan pointed at the transfer receipt. "Those 17 students never lost their scholarships." Your soulmate frowned. "I know. We found emergency funding." Jordan shook their head. "No, then, they found it." Your soulmate stared at the amount. More than $90,000. Paid through an account that had always been described as an anonymous emergency donor. Jordan quietly said, "That was them." Your soulmate's face went pale. Because for 8 months they had believed you were the reason the scholarship money had been frozen in the first place. Now the person closest to you was telling them you had secretly replaced the very money everyone accused you of putting at risk. But that was only the first thing inside the folder. And by the time Jordan reached the final document, your soulmate would understand that the worst story they had ever believed about you had been built around something you did to protect someone they loved. The story began almost 3 years earlier with a place called Harbolite. Harbolite was a scholarship and mentorship organization created by your soulmate's mother, Evelyn, after she spent 20 years teaching in public schools. She had watched brilliant students reject university offers because their families could not afford housing, books, transport, or the hundreds of small costs traditional scholarships often ignored. So Evelyn built Harbolite differently. It did not only pay tuition. It covered emergency rent, laptops, travel, childcare, textbooks. Anything that could become the difference between someone remaining in school and quietly disappearing. Your soulmate grew up around it. They helped pack orientation folders as a teenager. They attended graduation dinners. They knew former scholarship recipients who later returned as mentors. Their father, Robert, handled fundraising. Their younger brother, Theo, managed operations. And your soulmate became director after Evelyn retired. Harbolite was not just work to them. It was the thing their mother had built with almost nothing. That was why your first meeting went badly. You had been hired to help Harbolite prepare for its biggest expansion. A private donor named Nathan Vale had pledged $6 million over 5 years. The money would nearly double the number of students Harbolite could support. You were brought in to review the financial controls before the first major payment arrived. Your soulmate expected a short meeting. Instead, you asked why 3 vendors used the same mailing address. Robert said they shared office space. You asked why 2 had been created within 3 weeks of each other. Theo said that happened sometimes with non-profit contractors. Then you asked why one company had billed Harbolite almost $70,000 for student technology while delivery records showed less than half the equipment had arrived. The room became quiet. Your soulmate said, "Are you suggesting somebody here is stealing?" You looked at them. "I'm suggesting 40 computers are missing." They did not like you. For approximately 2 days. Then Theo found the computers. They had not been stolen. They were sitting inside a warehouse because the supplier had entered the wrong delivery date. You admitted you had been wrong about theft. Your soulmate expected you to become defensive. Instead, you said, "Good. Being wrong is cheaper." They laughed. That changed something. Over the next several months, you became part of Harbolite. You tightened payment systems. You created a process that allowed students to receive emergency money within hours instead of waiting for monthly approvals. You discovered and used grant funds and redirected them toward housing support. You also spent more time with your soulmate. Late evenings became normal. One night, both of you were still working when the building's cleaning crew accidentally locked the side entrance. You waited outside in the cold for almost an hour. Your soulmate complained that you had ruined their evening. You said, you were reviewing scholarship reimbursement policy at 10:30 p.m. I think your evening was already beyond repair. They smiled. Then they offered you half of the sandwich they had forgotten to eat. You asked, "How romantic." They answered, "You haven't earned romance." 3 months later, you had. The relationship developed quietly. No giant announcement. No dramatic beginning. Coffee before work. Walks after donor dinners. Your soulmate introducing you to Evelyn. Theo constantly making jokes about both of you pretending meetings were not dates. One evening, your soulmate took you to Harbolite's archive room. Hundreds of thank you letters filled the shelves. They showed you one from the first student Evelyn ever helped. Your soulmate said, "This is why I panic when anything threatens this place." You answered, I know. They looked at you. You always make everything sound simple. No. I just think fear gets more dangerous when everyone gives it a complicated name. Your soulmate remembered that sentence. Because almost a year later, fear would make your name sound dangerous too. The first real problem began when Nathan Vale's donation arrived. His foundation transferred the first $1.2 million. Most of it was restricted for scholarships. A smaller portion could be used for operations and technology. Theo had been responsible for coordinating the accounts. 3 weeks later, you noticed something strange. $240,000 had moved from the scholarship reserve into a temporary holding account. The authorization carried Theo's credentials. You called him. He said he had approved several scheduled transfers but did not remember that one. You called your soulmate. They came immediately. You showed them the transaction. They asked, where did the money go? You answered, right now, nowhere. It's waiting for release. The destination account belonged to a financial processing firm called Easton Bridge Services. You had never heard of it. Theo recognized the name. A consultant called Mason Reed had recommended it. Mason had been helping Harbolite modernize its payment systems. Robert liked him. Theo trusted him. You did not. You froze the transfer. That decision prevented the money from leaving Harbolite. It also triggered a contractual problem. Nathan Vale's foundation had strict rules. Any irregular movement of restricted scholarship funds required automatic suspension until an independent review was completed. Within 48 hours, Harbolite's scholarship accounts were frozen. Students expecting payments received notices saying disbursements were delayed. Parents called. Universities demanded confirmation. Your soulmate panicked. 17 students had deadlines within 2 weeks. If the money did not arrive, some could lose housing or enrollment. Robert blamed you immediately. You froze the transaction. Yes. If you had spoken to us first, the money could have left. Mason Reed insisted Easton Bridge was legitimate. He said the transfer had merely been part of system testing. You asked why a system test required real restricted funds. Mason replied, that's not how it was intended. You asked, then why did Theo authorize it? Theo looked confused. He said he did not remember. Your soulmate defended him. You did too. You said, I don't think Theo knowingly approved this. Robert looked at you. Then why does his login appear? You had no answer yet. The review began. Nathan Vale suspended the next funding installment. Rumors spread. Then someone leaked a partial internal email. It showed you instructing the bank to freeze Harbolite's accounts. The rest of the email, where you explained the suspicious transfer, was missing. Suddenly, the story became simple. An outside consultant had frozen scholarship money. Students were suffering. Donors were nervous. Harbolite might collapse. Your name began appearing everywhere. Robert told the board you had acted without sufficient authorization. That was partly true. You had emergency authority to stop suspicious payments. But Robert made it sound reckless. Your soulmate came to you that night. They were exhausted. Did you know freezing that transfer would freeze everything? You answered, I knew it could trigger review. You never told me. There wasn't time. 17 students might lose funding. I know. Your soulmate stared at you. You keep saying you know. What do you want me to say? I want you to tell me you had another plan. You did not. Not yet. That frightened them. Then Mason provided a report. It suggested Easton Bridge was a legitimate processing company and the transaction had been incorrectly coded. If that was true, your emergency freeze had been unnecessary. Robert demanded your resignation. Your soulmate stopped him. They asked for 48 more hours. You agreed. During those 48 hours, you found the first clue. Easton Bridge was legitimate. But the account number attached to Harbolite's transfer did not belong to Easton Bridge. It belonged to a recently created company with an almost identical name, Easton Bridges Advisory, one extra letter. Different bank. Different owner. The owner was connected to Mason Reed. You called your soulmate. They did not answer. They were in a board meeting. You called Theo. No answer. Then you called Jordan. That was the first time someone close to you became part of this story. Jordan had worked in banking compliance for years. You sent the records. They confirmed your suspicion. If the transfer had completed, the scholarship money could have disappeared. You had stopped it. But something still made no sense. Theo's login had authorized the transaction. You knew Theo. He was careless sometimes. He was not corrupt. Then Jordan found something. The authorization happened at 3:17 a.m. Theo had been on a flight at the time. The login came from Harbolite's office. Someone else had used his credentials. You checked security records. Mason had entered the building that evening claiming he needed access to the server room. You finally had enough to confront him. Then Robert called you first. He asked to meet privately. When you arrived, Theo was already there. Crying. He admitted something. Weeks earlier, Mason had asked him to approve several system access permissions. Theo approved them without reading every page. One of those permissions allowed Mason's software administrator rights. Theo had not stolen money. But his carelessness had created the opening. If the board learned everything immediately, Theo could lose his job. Worse, Nathan Vale's foundation might claim Harbolite had failed basic financial controls and terminate its entire donation. Robert begged you to delay reporting Theo's role until emergency funding for students was secured. You said, Mason tried to steal restricted money. Robert replied, I know. Then this goes to investigators. It will. When? When the students are safe. You looked at Theo. He whispered, "I'm sorry." You asked, "Did you know what you were approving?" "No." "Did Mason tell you what the permissions did?" "No." You believed him. Then Robert asked you for something you should never have agreed to. He wanted you to accept responsibility for the emergency freeze publicly. Not the attempted transfer. The freeze. Harbolite would say you had acted independently after identifying an irregularity. Theo's credentials would remain out of the public statement until investigators completed their work. Your soulmate would not know. You said no. Robert said, "If they know Theo caused this, they'll protect him." You replied, "They should know the truth." Robert answered, "And if knowing makes them compromise the investigation?" That was manipulation. But there was enough truth inside it to make you hesitate. Your soulmate loved Theo. They had spent their entire life protecting their family. And 17 students still needed money within days. You agreed to one condition. The concealment would last only until the emergency scholarship payments were secured. Robert promised. That promise lasted much longer. The following afternoon, Harbolite issued the statement. Your soulmate read it before calling you. It said the scholarship freeze resulted from an emergency action initiated by an outside financial advisor. They came to your apartment. Did you approve this statement? Yes. Why? You could not explain. Not without exposing Theo. Your soulmate stared at you. Were you wrong about the transfer? No. Then tell me what happened. I can't yet. Their face changed. Can't? Not yet. You froze money. 17 students are waiting. Donors are leaving. My father says you acted alone, and your answer is not yet? You said, "I'm trying to protect something." They asked, "What?" You stayed silent. That silence became the wound. Your soulmate said, "I have defended you in every room." You looked at them. I know. Then why won't you trust me with the truth? You had no answer that would not break the promise. They left. 2 days later, you solved the scholarship emergency yourself. You withdrew money from a long-term investment. Jordan arranged the transfer through an independent education trust. You anonymously covered all 17 urgent scholarship payments. No student lost housing. No enrollment was cancelled. Harbolite told everyone emergency donors had stepped forward. Your soulmate cried with relief. They never knew it was you. Then the investigation reached Mason. He disappeared before a formal interview. Documents were discovered showing he had attempted similar fraud at another nonprofit. Easton Bridges Advisory was traced to him. Investigators confirmed the transfer was fraudulent. You had been right. But Robert still did not tell your soulmate about Theo. He said disclosure could wait until the final report. Weeks became months. Meanwhile, your relationship collapsed. Your soulmate believed you had knowingly withheld critical information from them. They believed you had decided protecting, something mattered more than trusting them. And because Robert continued describing you as difficult and secretive, their doubt grew. You eventually stopped defending yourself. Your final conversation happened outside Harbolite after a graduation dinner. Your soulmate said, "I don't know who you were protecting, but I know it wasn't me." You looked at them for a long time. Then, "I hope one day you understand why I couldn't answer." They said, "I hope one day you understand what not answering cost." You did. More than they knew. You walked away. The investigation continued. Mason was charged. Harbolite recovered part of the attempted fraud through insurance. Nathan Vale restored the donation. Theo kept his job. Your soulmate assumed the crisis was finally over. But Jordan knew one secret remained. You had given them the folder. The bank records. The proof of your emergency scholarship transfer. A statement explaining Theo's role. And one instruction: do not give this to them until the investigation is complete and Theo can no longer be used as leverage. 8 months passed. Yesterday, the final settlement closed. Theo's negligence was formally classified as a training and oversight failure, not fraud. Mason took responsibility for unauthorized system access. No legal risk remained. That was why Jordan finally asked your soulmate to meet. Back inside Alder and Pine, your soulmate sat staring at the documents. Jordan explained Theo's permissions. Mason's access. Robert's request. Your agreement to temporary silence. Your soulmate interrupted, "My father asked them to take the blame?" Jordan nodded. They agreed? Yes. Why? Jordan answered, "Because Theo was terrified, the students needed money, and your father convinced them that telling you immediately might make everything worse." Your soulmate became angry. "They should have told me." Jordan looked at them. Yes. That answer surprised them. Jordan continued, "They made mistakes too. They should have trusted you more. But you need to understand what happened after." Then Jordan showed them the transfer. $93,000. Your money. Your soulmate whispered, "No," Jordan said, "every student you thought might lose funding was paid because they emptied an investment account." Why didn't they tell me? Because they didn't want saving those students to become evidence you owed them trust. Your soulmate looked down. Jordan was not finished. There was another document. After Mason was exposed, Harbolite's insurer refused to reimburse certain legal expenses because the foundation's access controls had been inadequate. Robert planned to cut the mentorship program to cover the shortfall. You found out. You negotiated privately with Nathan Vale's foundation. You convinced them to redirect part of a future administrative grant toward stronger security systems and staff training. The mentorship program survived. Again, your soulmate never knew. Then came the deeper reveal. Jordan pulled out a handwritten letter. It was from Theo. He had written it 3 months earlier but never found the courage to send it. Your soulmate opened it. Theo wrote, they protected me when I did not deserve protection from consequences. They never asked anyone to pretend I had done nothing. They only asked that my mistake not be turned into a story that I helped steal from students. Your soulmate's eyes filled with tears. Then, Dad kept telling me silence was necessary. After a while, I think silence became easier for all of us because it made them the person carrying the suspicion instead of me. Your soulmate stopped reading. That sentence hurt. Theo continued, they lost you because of something I helped create. Your soulmate put the letter down. Then Jordan said, there's one more thing. Your soulmate almost laughed from exhaustion. What could possibly be left? Jordan looked at them carefully. The night before they left Harbolite for good, they came to see me. Your soulmate waited. Jordan continued, they were angry with you. Your soulmate nodded slowly. They had every right. Yes. But that wasn't what they talked about. What did they say? Jordan remembered the exact words. They said, please don't let me turn what happened into proof they never loved me. They were scared too. Your soulmate began crying. Jordan continued, they were trying to protect your character even while they were leaving because they felt you had failed to protect theirs. That was the second reveal. You had not left believing your soulmate was cruel. You had left because the relationship had become unsafe for truth. But even then, you refused to simplify them into a villain. For 8 months your soulmate had been doing exactly the opposite. They had told themselves you were secretive, distant, controlling. Someone who cared more about being right than being trusted. That story protected them from asking a harder question. What if you had been carrying more than they could see? Your soulmate covered their face. Jordan let them cry. After a while, your soulmate asked, did they ever ask about me? Jordan hesitated. Yes. How often? More than I should probably tell you. Your soulmate laughed through tears. What did they ask? Whether you were okay. Whether Harbolite recovered. Whether Theo kept his job. Did they ask if I hated them? Jordan looked at them. Once. Your soulmate went still. What did you say? I said I didn't know. And what did they say? Jordan answered, they said, that's fair. No dramatic speech. No demand. Just, that's fair. Your soulmate cried harder. Because somewhere inside them, they had expected you to be angry enough to make their guilt easier. Instead, you had accepted that they were allowed to feel hurt too. That night, your soulmate went home carrying the brown folder. They did not call Robert first. They called Theo. Did you know they paid the scholarships? Silence. Then, yes. How long? Almost from the beginning. Your soulmate closed their eyes. You let me believe anonymous donors did it. Theo whispered, I was ashamed. Did Dad know? Yes. Your soulmate stood up. So everybody knew except me. Theo answered, not everybody. You know what I mean. Then your soulmate asked the question they had avoided all evening. Why didn't you tell me? Theo cried. Because every week it became harder. At first Dad said we had to protect the investigation. Then Mason disappeared. Then the funding came back. Then you two were already falling apart. And after that, telling you meant admitting how long we had let them carry it. Your soulmate said nothing. Theo continued, they never told me to keep lying to you. That mattered. You had agreed to temporary silence. The family extended it. Your soulmate had built months of resentment around a promise you never made. The following morning, they confronted Robert. He did not deny anything. He said, I was protecting Harbolite. Your soulmate almost laughed. That sentence again. Robert looked confused. Your soulmate placed the transfer record in front of him. They paid $93,000. Robert looked down. You knew. Yes. And you let me think they had nearly destroyed those students' futures. Robert said, I never said that. You didn't have to. Silence. Then your soulmate asked, did you know what the silence was doing to us? Robert answered quietly, I thought once everything was over, you could repair it. Your soulmate stared at him. You treated my relationship like damage you could schedule for later. Robert had no answer. Your soulmate left. But they did not immediately contact you. That is important. Because 8 months earlier, they would have believed discovering the truth gave them permission to rush into your life. Now they understood that truth did not erase the months you spent being misunderstood. They opened your old conversation. The last message you sent still existed. It said, I hope one day the truth reaches you without me having to use it to convince you to love me. At the time, your soulmate thought it sounded dramatic. Last night, it finally made sense. They started typing. The first draft said, Jordan told me everything. Deleted. Jordan had told them documents. Not everything. The second said, I know why you did it. Deleted. No. They knew facts. They did not yet know what living through those facts felt like for you. Finally, I met with Jordan last night. That stayed. Then, my name came up, and then yours did, and I learned things I should have been told months ago. They explained the folder. The scholarships. Theo. Robert. Then they wrote, I am not messaging you to say that because I understand more now, everything should be repaired. Another line, I also won't pretend every choice you made was perfect. I wish you had trusted me sooner. They stopped. Then added, but I understand now that I was asking you for trust while accepting a version of you built by people who benefited from your silence. That sentence stayed. Your soulmate continued, I thought you were protecting something instead of me. I did not understand that one of the people you were protecting was my brother, and another group was 17 students who never even knew your name. Then, I found out you kept asking whether I was okay after we stopped speaking. Their hands shook. And I found out you asked Jordan not to turn my fear into proof that I never loved you. Then the hardest sentence, I did not give you the same grace. Your soulmate stopped writing. They walked through Harbolite alone this afternoon. The scholarship office was open. Several students were collecting orientation materials. One of the 17 people you secretly helped was there. They had no idea. They smiled at your soulmate and said they would graduate next spring. Your soulmate smiled back. Then went into the archive room and cried. Because suddenly $93,000 was not a number. It was 17 lives continuing without interruption while your own relationship fell apart in silence. Theo joined them later. He said, I'm sorry. Your soulmate answered, you need to apologize to them. I will. Then Theo asked, do you want them back? Your soulmate looked at him. Yes. But then, that doesn't mean I get to have them back. That is the difference now. Your soulmate is not looking at the truth as a key. They are looking at it as a responsibility. They have asked Harbolite to correct the internal record. Your emergency action will no longer be described simply as the decision that froze scholarship accounts. The board record will state that your intervention prevented unauthorized transfer of restricted funds. Your contribution to the Emergency Scholarship Trust will remain anonymous publicly unless you choose otherwise. Your soulmate insisted on that. Robert asked, why not give them credit? Your soulmate answered, because it's their name. For once, the family will ask before deciding what story belongs to you. Tonight, your soulmate has returned to Alder and Pine. Same back room. Same table. Jordan is gone. The brown folder is still beside them. Your message is open. They have added one final paragraph. I spent months believing the private part of our relationship was where the truth lived. Now I understand that if love only believes someone behind closed doors while doubt speaks louder everywhere else, the private belief eventually stops feeling like protection. Then, if you ever want one conversation, would like to have it. No promise. No pressure. Then, I want to hear what happened from you, not from Jordan, Theo, my father, or a folder. And finally, if you don't want that conversation, I will still correct what I can. The truth about what you did should not depend on whether you ever choose me again. Your soulmate reads the message once. Then again. Their finger hovers over send. And this time, the question is no longer whether your name came up in that private conversation. It did. Again and again. The real question is what your soulmate finally heard when it did. They heard that you protected 17 students. That you protected Theo from being falsely treated like a thief. That you protected Harbolite from Mason. That you protected your soulmate's character even while walking away from them. And they heard something even more difficult. You did all of that while believing your soulmate might never understand. That is the part they cannot stop thinking about. Because love is easy to recognize when someone is standing in front of you asking to be seen. Yours was hidden inside decisions nobody applauded. Inside money nobody knew came from you. Inside evidence you stored with a friend. Inside questions about whether your soulmate was okay. And inside one instruction written across a brown folder: do not give this to them until the truth can no longer be used to hurt anyone. Now the investigation is over. The folder is open. Your name has finally been spoken in the room where all the missing pieces were placed together. The message is ready. Your soulmate still does not know whether you will answer. But for the first time, they understand that the next conversation cannot be about convincing you that they loved you all along. It has to be about whether that love can finally become honest enough to deserve another chance. And that answer belongs to you.